I'm Scott Nichols. My company is Tarm Biomass. We're located in Lyme, New Hampshire. We are an importer and distributor of wood boilers, wood pellet boilers, wood chip boilers. So we don't do local installations, but we supply the people who do. I am going to talk about commercial boilers, which are basically the same thing as residential boilers, but bigger. So even if you're here tonight to consider a residential boiler for your home, it's also important to remember that you work for places that heat with oil and propane. You live in communities with schools that might heat with oil and propane. And in our opinion, commercial boilers present one of the biggest opportunities for use of wood pellets. One of the reasons for that is that the bigger the boiler, the more fossil fuel you can offset and the greater savings you can realize. And communities can raise money to pay for these systems sometimes more easily than a single residential customer can. So there are some major financial advantages. So how do you do that? Well, we have found that in order to get commercial scale or community scale pellet heating to go, you need to make sure everybody is well educated. So we offer our assistants to go out and make sure that everybody knows how they work. This sort of thing tonight is a perfect example of how we get that done. We then do a careful heat loss analysis to make sure that what we're putting in this a school or commercial building is actually going to work the way we say it will. If we oversize it, it won't work well. If we undersize it, it won't work well. We need to right size it. We then very carefully figure out what the total cost will be. So when we go in front of a board of one sort or another, we have real factual data about what it's going to cost, not just the fuel, not just the purchase, but the ongoing service and maintenance. We then come up with an installation plan, do more outreach and education, try to find, make sure that everybody's ready to fund the project. And oftentimes there are not only company business funds, but town funds that aren't tapped, and sometimes there are incentives from states that are available. For instance, in the state of New Hampshire, $50,000, 30% of a project cost up to $50,000 cap. And then it's very important to follow up and make sure that it's working right, so that people aren't talking poorly about the installation of the machine. I'm going to show you a couple of quick examples of commercial sites. This is the Stepford Hill Congregational Church. In this case, two oil hot air furnaces were replaced with a pellet boiler and an oil boiler. We undersized the pellet boiler in this case so that we could utilize it more fully, which means that the heating load of this building is much greater than the heat output of the pellet boiler. So the pellet boiler basically runs on high more often than not. If the pellet boiler can't keep up with the load, for instance, on a very cold Sunday morning when the sanctuary is brought from 40 degrees to whatever they can get it to or want it to go to, they can sometimes fire with the oil boiler to catch up. In this case, there was great support from the congregation and the board of deacons. There were several meetings, I think 3 meetings we had, to make sure that everybody was on board and everybody understood what was going to be involved, not only in terms of the long-term use of the product, but what the upfront costs would be. They completely rejuvenated, rehabilitated their basement, including the construction of this pellet bin, which holds about 12 tons of fuel. This is all built out of Advantech 3/4 inch particle board, very smooth surfaces. And at the bottom, it's hard to see, but there is a V-shaped trough with an auger. And that auger feeds the fuel out of the bin to 2 suction hoses, the same size suction hoses that Morty showed in the earlier residential slide. And those hoses go about 50 feet to the pellet boiler room, where the pellet boiler sucks them in and fuels itself. Here's another local example. This is the Lyme Elementary School. As many of you probably know, Lyme Elementary added a large addition last year, about 10,000 square feet. They had a 1.2 million BTU oil boiler and a 750,000 BTU oil boiler in there. And with some careful heat loss analysis and analysis of when those heat loads were, we discovered that their oil boilers were about double the size they needed to be. And so we put in 2 pellet boilers, each of them 350,000 BTUs. So we are now heating that school with half the heat output that was used before, and they've added 10,000 more feet of building space. We've replaced, in this case, about 9,000 gallons of heating oil with 80 tons of wood pellets. And the most beautiful thing about this is that the community was 100% behind it. It supported my business, and it supports Morty's business. He's the one who delivers the wood pellets, and those pellets are made in Jaffrey, New Hampshire. So it's a very tight regional benefit, and the kids can understand that they're being heated with a non-toxic renewable fuel. This is what the storage looks like outside the school. This is a 30-ton bin. Anybody who walks by to the playing fields can see that and understand that this building is not being heated in a conventional way. The side benefit is that the oil tanks that were underground, buried there by the school, are now gone. And I don't know, Morty, you come 3 times a year and fill that?
3 or 4, yes.
Yeah. This is what the boiler room looks like inside. Very hard to get a picture of it. But basically, 2 pellet boilers. They are in what we call a cascaded arrangement. In other words, one boiler fires until it can't keep up, and then another boiler is brought on automatically so that it is always matching the load. And we've discovered that actually they can't meet the load on the very coldest days. If it gets below 10 degrees Fahrenheit, we bring on the propane boiler just to make sure nobody gets cold. And that concludes my part.